Hello, hello. Today we're talking about birth control. Everything you need to know, its lies exposed, and what's the truth about birth control. There's this movie out by Abby Epstein, and that's what I watched and got all of this information from. It was so amazing. I would recommend you guys to watch it. It did have some, people not wearing clothes, that type of thing. So I can't say I can recommend it, but the information was so good. And I took so many notes, and that's what I'm going to go over today. All the scientific facts, everything, history, absolutely everything. And if you're like me, you probably never got talked about any of this type of stuff. It's just hush hush. And anyways, you know probably what I'm talking about. So I was talking with my friend, and she was saying how her mom, when she first got married, was on it, but she got such horrible mood swings and depression and just was totally a completely different person and just felt out of control, that after years she just went off of it. And then of course my friend was born. So anyways, that kind of talk facilitated this discussion. So you're gonna really enjoy it, and in other cases you might get really angered by it. And if you ever want to know more information, just go to The Business of Birth Control. That's their movie name. Go to their website, they have more stuff on it, or classes on how to get off the pill and those types of things, if that's what you choose. But for now, let's get right into it. So I'm going to be looking down because I don't have it memorized, and I want to get all my facts straight, and I have like pages, so I'm just going to be looking over here. So in the 60s, it was extremely liberating to have the pill. Abby Epstein was saying it changed so much. It allowed women to take into their own hands the ability to control their fertility. It really revolutionized the ability of women to work and pursue their dreams. And Cecile Richards of Planned Parenthood said that it was a great liberator that allowed a revolution which allowed you to be with people, you know what I mean, without being found out. Because it used to be, to get a diaphragm, you would have to be married and you'd have to get his approval. 12 million Americans use the pill, and 80% of Americans have used the pill at some point of time in their lives. The pill was approved by the FDA to be used only for a short time, and now it's being used for decades. And of course, we've since found out that it had side effects on metabolism, on our bone density, on our mood, and our mood of wanting to even be with a partner. And it also caused lots of suicidal thoughts and depression. And it's like, I can't believe we don't have better forms of this, they were saying. Because, they all the birth control have like 3 pages of disclaimers and all of that. So it's like side effects, sorry. So it's like, I can't believe it's been approved. And it's really hard to have talks about the downside of hormonal birth control, because it's like inextricably tied to the freedom movement, the feminist movement. But at what cost? Only half the story is being told. See, most people have no idea what pill they are on, what brand, and never were told how it works, only that you just take it and that's just what you do. And in our bodies, like the human body, and especially like a woman's body, like we have this intricate, amazing design that is synced to nature and, circadian rhythms. It starts in our brain, in the hypothalamus, runs through our pituitary, goes to our ovaries, and it's cyclic. It's not steady. So our ovaries make estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And ideally, when our hormones are in their neutral state, they change our moods, how we feel, and how we experience things. And our brain is in constant contact with our ovaries, and that's how we orchestrate ovulation, and really the symphony that is the menstrual cycle. But on hormonal birth control, you put the entire system on halt, on mute. Not even on halt, it's on mute. It's still trying to do stuff, but it's just like gagged and blindfolded, pretty much. It's like you are blocking the text messages, like literally. Like when you block a guy you don't want to ever talk to again. You know, it literally shuts down the ovaries. Do you get that? It shuts it down. Dr. John O'Dira, an endocrinologist, said, "You are shutting down your own ovaries and replacing them with these chemicals. Because what do hormonal birth control contain? Synthetic estrogen or synthetic progesterone to stop ovulation." Lisa Hendrickson-Jack, fertility awareness educator, was saying, "We are told it's regulating your cycle, or your body just thinks it's pregnant." But none of those things are actually what's going on. Because you're not just getting a period when you're on hormonal birth control. Because pill bleeds are not a period. It's withdrawal bleed. It's not considered a period. And I didn't know that, so I don't know if you guys knew that. Because this idea, I'm quoting, this idea that we've been sold by pharmaceutical companies, that you should just take the pill and get rid of your hormones, is really incomplete and potentially dangerous, says Sarah Gottfried, MD. Because they're marketed as just lifestyle drugs, like as fun, like just stop your acne, regulate your period, feel better, etc. But what people don't realize, what we didn't realize, is that we are turning off this very important part of our bodily function that's happening every month, ovulation. And quoting again, "The prevailing narrative is that we don't need to ovulate unless we want to make a baby," which is crazy because regular ovulation is how we make our hormones, estrogen and progesterone, which have many benefits. Because to say that we don't need to ovulate unless to make a baby is like telling a man that until you want to make a baby, we're just going to, shove this drug down your throat to shut down your testosterone. Like, that's what we do to women. And which guy is going to do that, And yet we're doing it. Says Laura Britton, MD, author of Period Repair Manual. Okay. See, these affect our brain, create cardiovascular problems down the road, affect our bone density, our chest development. And to say that we can just give this to healthy women and it will make no difference is absolutely crazy. Alyssa Vitti, founder of Flow Living, says, "We are putting younger and younger women on the birth control pill. And there haven't been studies on that long term in regards to mental health and reproductive health. Because most women feel off on it and get really bad feelings and hormonal panic attacks. And feel hormonal and get panic attacks and etc. And doctors don't say how much it affects women. Most people don't think all that is caused by the pill. And when they come off the pill, they feel much better, but they always say that their doctor didn't say anything. The doctors never told them that that's what can happen. Or when they do say they have all these things, the doctors never say it's the pill. So, it wasn't until a study from the University of Copenhagen finding correlation between women suffering from depression and anxiety and those on hormonal birth control. I'm quoting, "A massive new study says that the contraceptive pill is linked to depression and teens are most at risk." End quote. By Casey Werber, a reporter, October 4th, 2016. And Ojvind Lindgaard, at professor of University of Copenhagen, said that people don't like the message that hormonal contraception may bring depression. A woman should know it could be a cause of her hormonal contraceptive use, because then she can stop that use. Because if we don't know it's coming from the pill, how will we even know to stop it? So, Dr. Lindgaard's study found that an 80% increased risk in depression for women who started hormonal birth control between the ages of 15 and 19. That is huge. He continues, "A majority of women do not get depression, but the denial of the existence of that problem implies that women are not asked sufficiently." End quote. Sarah Gottfried, MD, says, "When I went through my training, I was told there's not a mood effect. But I can tell you from being on the pill myself and taking care of 25,000 women that there is a mood effect, and it's well demonstrated, end quote. So we should be warning women that they can experience all these things so that they know it's not just them. Because otherwise most women just think that they're being crazy, because no one talks and no one is told and the doctors don't say anything. And it's so sad. So like Sarah Hill says that this is your brain on birth control. Like we always say how it makes them feel, but never taught how it all works, and how it changes on the pill. Okay, let me start that sentence again. Sarah Hill, the author of This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, says we always say how it makes them feel, but we're never taught how it all works regarding how our body changes on the pill. Taking the pill makes a dampened stress response, especially the hormone cortisol. It makes one less able to handle stress and dampens memory and learning, so it creates moods like depression, anxiety, and brain fog. So you're a different version of yourself on birth control, on hormonal birth control. And women shouldn't have to change their entire self just to protect against pregnancy. And we all should know that that's exactly what we're doing when we're taking hormonal birth control pill. There's a whole long laundry list of side effects on hormonal birth control: weight gain, migraines, and even impact on partner attraction. And this is an interesting one. Women would go off the pill and then realize they weren't happy with the person that they were attracted to on the pill. There's this sweaty t-shirt study that shows that you can choose a good mate based on smell. But if you are on the pill, that mechanism seems to be offline. We're seeking genetic diversity. The MHZ complex is the smell that gives us that information. So what happens on the pill is that we are attracted to men more similar to us than different. So the catchphrase is you end up, being with someone more like brother and less like other. So what is the impact of this on the world? Well, the Breakfast Club, Angela Yee said, has these Kill the Pill t-shirts. And she was saying that we champion women's causes: fibriosis, PCOS, endocrinosis, infertility. And the number one culprit of all of these is the pill. People are being told that the pill is like the greatest invention of all time, but it's making our women sick. And so that's why we're saying, kill the pill before it kills you, end quote. Coach Jesse Thompson from Kill the Pill, nutritionist and founder of thedetoxnow.com, says, quote, "So many women say, oh, I just have a heavy cycle, and not realizing that they're exhibiting signs of fibriosis, which is estrogen dominance. It's triggered by diet, stress, and pollutants. And while those chemical pollutants, the number one cause was birth control, hormonal birth control. Like, oh my. 11.5 million of women are on the pill, 35% of which who are prescribed it are for non-contraceptive reasons, like acne or regulation, saying that you need this. And over time, it masks your symptoms. And then when you get off of it, you see, oh my, there have been monsters developing in the background. And she's saying that, I'm still having her quote, "I talk to women daily of how it causes fibroids, infertility, causing pulmonary embolisms, blood clots, where women have lost their lives." And we have to look at something so prevalent and inextricably tied to women's lives. Like, why are we sicker as women? End quote. Dr. John O'Deara, quote, "Too often I see women put on birth control pills, not for contraception, but to deal with other things, where the doctor never even tests them to see why it's happening. It's just this knee-jerk shoot-from-the-hip reaction, like, boom, just take the birth control pill. It suppresses the pain a little, but when you get off, it's right back. It doesn't help. And even for endometriosis, which the pill is the only solution, definitely go check natural solutions for all these things. It's just a Band-Aid. It doesn't really help. It's like having all your furniture on the front lawn and the police coming and saying, "That's life. Want to take the pill?" There was a lady, saying that on the show, and I was like, it is so true. That's kind of what is expected. It's the craziest thing. So you're at higher risk for diabetes, heart attack, and stroke. You're at higher risk for diabetes, heart attack, and stroke. Like, this is big stuff. And quoting Erica Schwartz, MD, she's saying, "We're not setting women free. We're setting them up for disease and for a lot of problems." Rich and Karen Langhart, they were featured on the show, and it's extremely sad because their daughter has died from birth control. And how I'm going to be explaining what was on the movie, you'll have to watch it to be able to feel the emotion, because it was so sad. But I'll just give you guys the gist. But they were saying that their phone rang from their daughter, and it was her boyfriend saying she was on the floor of her apartment, that their daughter was on the floor of the apartment and had multiple heart attacks on the way to the ER. And the doctor at the ER asked if the girl was on birth control. And the mom was like, "Yes, NuvaRing." And he said, "I believe that's the problem, and we have pulmonary embolisms going on." And she died. They showed her lungs, like huge clots. Like, you know how the lungs are perfectly pink? There's these huge, like nasty, like clots. Like, they're purple and big. And they showed a picture, and it's absolutely awful. Like, so bad. And so the doctor showed her lungs and said this was caused by the NuvaRing. She was prescribed it because of an ovarian cyst. But most cysts resolve on their own. And the parents were saying that if she knew what we know now, she would be right here doing this, what they're doing, like speaking up about birth control. Because she would be incensed at what's going on at the expense of women's health, unnecessarily. And we know there's girls not informed and therefore at risk, and we want to do whatever we can to help inform, end quote. And then there's another family. So the other family that was on the show, whose daughter also died from birth control, they were Donna and Joe Malone. And their daughter died. And it's so sad. Like, you have to watch it to feel the emotion. But the mom, she was later, afterwards, she was talking to a cashier who had just started getting on the pill a month ago. And she was having pain in her thigh. And so the mom told her, like, if you're having pain in your thigh, you need to go in right now and get help. So if any of you guys are having any pain or anything like that, or just started, I want you guys to be super aware of what's happening in your body and get help if you are experiencing that, okay? Anyways, on with their story. So their daughter got NuvaRing from Planned Parenthood and hid it from her father, so she put it in the bottom of the fridge. And on the package it says, "does not protect against HIV." And so the mom was saying, well, what about a black warning label that says could cause death? And that is so true, because they just have a teeny tiny print, like you would never even notice. Like, it needs to be like cigarettes, like she's gonna say that later on. But the story goes that the daughter who died, she and her friends went to a nightclub, and she was complaining of how loud it was, and she didn't want to dance, and that her heart was racing. And then just sitting there, her friends are telling the story, then her eyes rolled back and she just fell over. And so the doctor said that she came in without a heartbeat and was bleeding from the inside, from the lungs. And her lungs were hemorrhaging and was bleeding from the inside, from the lungs. And her lungs, were hemorrhaging, and they would not stop. It just couldn't stop. And so the doctor asked the friends if she was on any medication, and they were all like, no. And then one of the friend's moms said, but she's on birth control. And then the friend was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And you know what? I would have done the same thing. Like, which one of us think that birth control is like this big thing? No, but it is. So they did another brain scan and she was gone. So the dad, Joe Malone, started doing research and found that there's thousands of lawsuits and the product is still on the market. Like, how? Like, there's thousands of lawsuits against those companies because of these things. We just never hear about it because what's on the news is just what will make money. We have to keep that in mind. So the dad, he files with the FDA and doesn't hear back for a month, so he calls. And the person says that we don't have enough funding. And he's like, but my daughter died. Don't you want to know more about why my daughter died? And it's just like, what do? You know? So now let's go back to the history of birth control. So this is a new chapter. So in the middle of World War I, there was a campaign to legalize contraception. It was pushed by Margaret Sangster. She saw how many children and how it was happening, so she pushed women's autonomy of birth control. But she was doing it because of the science of eugenics, which is to get rid of less valuable members of society. And these are Margaret Sangster's words. I quote, "I think the greatest sin in the world is to bring children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things, just marked when they're born." End quote. She saw alliance with eugenics. She wanted birth control as common practice. She wanted a pill that could be used without the consent of men. But it came at the expense of an already oppressed people. The trial group was a trial in Puerto Rico, which was only 132 women. Only 132 women. Like when you do test groups, you do way more than 100 people. So it was only 132 women for 12 months. And Cindy Lequin, I quote, says, "It was that whole mentality of let's find a way to get the FDA to approve this. They're not going to do it here, so let's go to Puerto Rico because they're having population issues and they're living in poverty." End quote. So the doctor said that these women have been clamoring for ability to be in control of their fertility, end quote. And that's true. Like, that's what doctors were saying back in the day. And that's true. But they didn't know, the women didn't know about the possibilities of all the side effects. 5 women died on the trial. 1 was a suicide, and of course they said that had nothing to do with the pill. So when they presented the findings to the FDA, they just omitted the things that weren't comfortable to them, and they included the things they were comfortable with, and a lot of it came after the fact. Women had a lot of side effects. Enovid, the first pill, had a lot of synthetic estrogen, and it caused a lot of physical side effects, as well as mental-like depression. As well as a lot of physical side effects, as well as mental-like depression. In 1963 was reported the first blood clot and the first heart attack. And those are probably just reported, and there's probably many more that weren't reported. So a lot of things, so now I'm quoting from Barbara Seaman. She's saying a lot of things that are done to us are done without our real informed consent. I think our rights are violated most of the time by most doctors. End quote. She had had hair loss, and she asked her doctor, could this be related to the pill? And he said no. See? So now I'm going to talk about the Senate hearings of Gaylord Nelson and what was talked about there. So I'm starting. So it was saying that women are consuming the birth control pill in the thought that it is considered safe by the FDA. We have young women having strokes from abnormal blood clots, etc. It took 10 years for this to even begin to be brought up, and not even from a single woman. So Barbara was saying, because she was there at the hearing, she was young then, and her quote in the hearing was, "You are murdering us for your profit and convenience." End quote. Like, wow. See, no one is told the dangers of the pill, and with the side effects, are told to just keep using it. No one is told of the dangers of the pill. That's why I'm doing this, because I want you guys to know. And, they knew all the hazards, the doctors, the FDA, they knew all the hazards even before it was released. They knew the effects on metabolism, on mood. They had evidence of suicides and deaths in original trials. I hope YouTube doesn't demonetize me for saying that. So, Dr. Charles C. Edward, commissioner for the FDA, said, quote, "Our position is that oral contraceptives are an effective and safe form of birth control," end quote. They decided what the risk was and what it wasn't. They, the doctors, changed the benefit to risk paradigm. It was then the benefit to society versus the risk to women. And that blows me away. They always say benefit versus risk, but benefit to who versus my risk, says Barbara. And that is so true. We just can't believe everything we're told and that we hear. We have to dig for the truth. See, what happened because of their persistence, Barbara and her group, was an insert in the package. But what they wanted was 6 warning signs on the box, on the outer box itself. But they didn't get it. The doctors, the companies, they didn't want to do it because, of course, it's going to lose them money. But even then, they got the insert. But even then, it only said maybe blood clots. And it left out all the side effects. So in the movie, this is all my notes from the movie, but they were having a sign they were putting on the wall, just to show us, of Uncle Sam pointing his finger and saying, "Have you had your pill today?" And this is symbolic representation of state government intervention, and so this is also what they were saying, that in the 1800s and early 1900s, that they had slave hospitals and blacks hospitals where doctors would experiment and do gynecology to then save the lives of white women, is what they were saying. And that the government was giving the okay to doctors whenever they'd go in to make surgeries so that they couldn't have kids. They would sterilize them. And they would never tell them that they did that. And even in the 60s in LA, Mexicans were sterilized. Or another thing the government would do is they'd say, you can't live in government housing or have food stamps unless you agree to get on LAC, on LAC, a long-acting contraceptive. So they'd get the implant, they'd suffer the side effects, and they wouldn't know how to get it back out of themselves, because it's like an implant. And so even though they were informed, what was the actual choice? For them, their economic, livelihood was, in jeopardy in a sense, unless they decided to somehow make more money. So now this is on a different point. Now we're talking about a different type of birth control called YAZ, Y-A-Z. YAZ was the first to be approved for acne and PMS, but the advertisement said more than the FDA approved it for. And so now this is another story of a family whose daughter died because of it. So it's Michael and Jane Alexander. So the story is that when their daughter came home from college for summer, the mom took her into her gynecologist for birth control. And so when the daughter came back out, she returned saying that I'm on a new pill and it's great because it protects against PMS and acne. It's the miracle pill. And what happened was later she was returning with groceries to her apartment and she collapsed on the second floor. A blood clot had gone to her heart. Their friend was a physician, so they asked her, why did this happen to my daughter? And the physician, her first question was she on YAZ? And they said no. But then they tried to find the boxes and tried to figure out what she was on, and they figured out that yes, she was. So YAZ, which is a 4th generation progesterone, has a much higher risk for blood clot and stroke than previous generations. And they had a patent so they could charge more and say it's better. But better doesn't always mean safer. Erica Schwartz, MD, says they'd only do the safety studies for 6 weeks, so only to be taken for 6 weeks. And then it was up to the manufacturer to report any adverse reactions. So, Erica Schwartz is saying all this. So what manufacturer that's making billions of dollars has any incentive to post any adverse reactions? They don't have any incentive to do that. Olivia Rom, I'm quoting her, says 65% of pharmaceutical companies' budget is on ads, on marketing, not research and development and safety studies. I mean, some are, but most pharmaceutical companies, that's how it is. It's all about the bottom line. They want to sell what women want, think they want, or don't even know they want. It's all the bottom line. Okay, now I have just a quick personal note to put here, is that women earlier and earlier are getting menopause. And we have a friend who's way younger than my mom, and she has a 6-year-old, could only have 1 kid or only wanted 1 kid, but she's already having menopause, and she's like super young. And like people are having menopause in their 20s now. And it's hard to have kids when they want. They're free from pregnancy, but they have all the side effects. So is that really freeing? That's just my little thought I wanted to put in there. So back to my notes from the movie. They're saying that the 2011 FDA hearings on drospirenone containing birth control pills, and I quote, "The twofold increase in risk for venous embolism," I think that's the word, "is it's deemed an acceptable risk and has been deemed acceptable risk in the past," says Vanessa Collins, Vice President of Planned Parenthood, External Medical Affair. So the Vice President of Planned Parenthood was in favor of keeping the birth control on the market, even though it was killing women. She said that it's deemed an acceptable risk and has been deemed acceptable risk in the past. Planned Parenthood spoke in favor on those hearings of keeping it on the market because of the notion that the more options, the better. But why is our risk tolerance so high for something that is preventative, for something that is for healthy individuals? So Rick Ammons, another man whose daughter died from Yaz, it says that Yaz kills significantly more women than any other birth control pills. And an expert report of David A. Kessler, MD, says internal company documents stated that Bayer failed to disclose VTE risk information to FDA, physicians, and the public in 2008, end quote. They stated there's an increased risk of blood clots, but that statement was not passed on to the FDA, says Dr. David Kessler, former Commissioner FDA from 1990 to 1997. See, it downplayed the downsides, highlighted the good news. They marketed the drug saying that it works for PMS, even though it didn't, getting them to switch to a more dangerous and more expensive drug. And so he was saying that, had all this information come to my desk, I do not think I would have approved this drug, end quote. So this was Dr. David Kessler saying all that. So the Kessler report was not able to be given to the board based on a technicality. And after testimony, the panel voted 15 to 11 to keep the product on the market. It was later revealed that 4 out of the 15 that voted yes had ties to Bayer that they had not disclosed. So Rick Ammons, one of the dads whose daughter died, said, "We used to believe in the FDA, but now we don't. We realize now how much drug companies pay to get their product through. They only have one interest in mind, making money." So he was saying that they have spent over $500 million in litigation in order to cover it. The question is the FDA promoting the safety of the American people, or are they promoting the safety of medical companies' profits? The problem is, you skip over the warning labels, but for Brittany, for those girls, it became a tragic reality. The parents, all the parents just want, because they're really advocating, so other girls are informed. All the parents just want them to do is just fully disclose the warnings of the product. And the FDA says we believe, but the FDA says we believe we've said enough to provide healthcare proficiency, to provide healthcare to consumers to make, let me say that again. The FDA says we believe we've said enough to provide healthcare professionals and consumers to make informed decisions. But the thing is the side effects that they say they put in so that everyone is informed and everybody knows in reality, it's 3 pages long, huge pages long, of teeny tiny text and super tiny fine print in highfalutin language that you can't even find. So the mom of the girl who died, one of the girls, says what it needs to have, gesturing to the front of the box, is a big old label across the front like cigarettes say, "This can kill you." This needs to say the same thing, end quote. The parents, they want an FDA black box warning saying that you can die from this, but the FDA doesn't think it's necessary. At the American Association for the Advancement of Science at Washington, D.C., and I'm going to quote, Karen Langhart, along with an unfortunately growing number of parents, have a question for you. And this is, okay, let me start that again. Okay, so this is another hearing type thing. So at the American Association for the Advancement of Science at Washington, D.C., this lady who's representing all of the parents and all the people who have been hurt by the birth control pill is speaking. So now I'm quoting. Karen Langhart, along with an unfortunately growing number of parents, have a question for you. And she's talking to Dr. Michael Rosenblatt, CMO of Merck & Company, maker of NuvaRing. This is her question. If your daughter died as a result from pulmonary embolism, stroke, or heart attack because of the NuvaRing, would you still consider this drug to have an acceptable risk factor? And especially and particularly when there are safer options for birth control? So the owner of NuvaRing, he expressed his sincere sympathy for the loss of child, but that NuvaRing is like all hormonal contraceptives. It was labeled for warnings and has been known for a long time, and we believe the drug was labeled correctly. That was his answer. See, NuvaRing users have a 56% higher risk of blood clots when compared to older second-generation products. Yaz users have a 71% increased risk. Now, it is so much. I'm going to have to stop this real quick and I'll resume in a little bit. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so we ended off by saying that Yaz users have a 71% increased risk, and NuvaRing users have a 56% increased risk of blood clots when compared to the older second-generation products. So this is what Ojvind Lidegaard, MD, professor of OBGYN at Copenhagen University, has to say. And I quote, "This is not a ridiculously low risk. If people knew that, how many would put their daughter on the pill? If she had 2% risk of getting a thrombosis in 10 years. End quote. Michael and Jane Alexander, I think they're the parents of one of the daughters who died. She was saying that, and I quote, "The drug companies push the statistic that says that these types of drugs are safer than pregnancy. But that in itself is a huge problem, because what they ought to be using as a comparison is between these types of drugs and other forms of birth control, because there are safer forms of birth control than these third-generation hormonal birth control pills. And I think that's a crime." End quote. Merck, M-E-R-C-K, paid out $100 million to settle cases of injury and death linked with NuvaRing. Bayer paid out $2.04 billion in blood clot settlements related to Yaz and Yasmin. And both products are still on the market. See, when is a product so risky it really shouldn't even be an option? And I'm quoting from Chandra Maris, PhD. She's saying the left will not consider there's any possible danger of hormonal birth control because it damages the push for reproductive care. And then she kept on going that the right and the left, we all take sides and we don't get to the root of the problem. And so continuing her quote, she's saying that women are dying though. They should be given the information and then they can say yes or no. She kept going that saying that if I can teach you how to think about hormones, then each of you can find your own answers, end quote. See, Yaz drugs and NuvaRing, how it's wrecking women's bodies by putting synthetic hormones in that men, by the way, don't want to take, right? Like they're not doing that to themselves. So, how do we spread the word? Because this is so important. Like this is a huge thing that girls are just expected to do and expect to just be just as, centered and hormonally balanced as guys are who aren't doing that to themselves, So how do we spread the word? That's the challenge because the system is rigged to protect the companies. It's rigged to protect the companies so well that it's hard to get anything done. To get anything in front of the FDA is extremely difficult, said Joe, one of the fathers. He kept going and saying that I want this to be backed by a professional, because if I publish this, all these findings, they'll say Joe is a grieving father. But the thing is, that she was saying, is they'll do that anyway. No matter who says these things, they're just going to say that you're being nuts anyway, because they want to protect their profits. So, if you have a $17 billion a year market anyway, that's out there using it, why would the companies do anything? Chandler was saying. So, Joe, one of the fathers, he was saying that we didn't think our daughter had any side effects until we looked back in time. An early onset indicators was she started having migraines. They gave her decongestant. And it wasn't until contraceptive confirmation, I don't know what I wrote there, that I learned that was a huge sign it wasn't agreeing with her. No one, even doctors, didn't know these are the side effects, end quote. So how do we spread the word? How do we make it so that every girl, because we're starting birth control on girls like 8 or 11 years old, or even in their teenagers, like that we don't even know, or even adults don't know. Like, how do we spread the word? So one of the girls on there who was helping to spread the word that the parents were wanting to do, she was saying that how to spread the word to women themselves. Educate, but have fun, with them. So but also be able to catch them, hook their attention so that they will stay to learn, So do social media, Instagram, YouTube, do what are the signs of a blood clot, was one of the dad's ideas. Like, how would we just put out flyers of that? But is it enough to get their attention? Yes, it probably is, but start with educating and getting in front of women, not the doctors. And in women, where there is friendship, like when we're sharing this, it needs to be in friendship, not like this commanding, lording, preaching thing, okay? Like it needs to be in friendship, because that's where life-altering decisions are made. So that's what she was saying, so do it as the lady who is helping the parents, spread the word. She was saying, so do it as an Instagram post, a short, get it out there. The more we can get it out there, the more women will know. So let's all do our part, And so she was saying, I want to talk to them and get to them before they're at the doctor's office, because I want to win at this. I'm serious. Because what happened to your kids can't happen anymore. End quote. And I thought that was just so, so powerful. So, just spread the news. We all have our own niche, you know, and we all have our own circle of influence. So, you know, just start. And here's some fun facts. So did you know that a menstruating uterus doubles in size and weight? I didn't know that. And did you know that you can't get pregnant every day of the month? So there's times that you can't. So there's ways that we can naturally go about this without harming ourselves. So definitely, so that's the end. So definitely go, you know, look more into this and find other options. And they talk more about it on the business of birth control. And they also have courses on how to get off of it if you are on it, and, you know, and other options, which I don't know that much about. I just wanted to share all of this because I wanted to do my part in just spreading the word. And yeah, so this is so important. So I hope it helped you. I hope it helped you guys. I'm sorry it was a little long, but I'll see you the next time. Bye.